Sauce the boss in the building. Sauce the boss in the
Sauce the boss, yo, sauce the boss, of course. Hence, it's a simple sauce. Sauce the boss, yo, sauce the boss, of course. Hence, it's a simple sauce.
A scientist trying to improve surgical lighting ended up creating a souvenir instead. Queen Elizabeth had a nickname only Prince William used. He mispronounced Granny as Gary, and it stuck. Booth number 17 in Grand Central Terminal was not just a payphone. It was the most used phone in the world. Hollywood believed humans were once stars, saying people must go through multiple reincarnations to return to the sky. A restaurant in Long Beach, California was caught reselling fast food. They bought Popeye's chicken and sold it for a profit without telling customers. The British royal family is worth billions. King Charles alone inherited over 1.8 billion pounds. Campbell's tried selling soup as a cocktail. They called it soup on the rocks, a low-calorie alternative to alcohol. A man cheated at poker with infrared contact lenses. He saw hidden ink markings on the cards and won $95,000 before getting caught. Aged Parmesan literally still backs millions in loans today. Mariam bin Laden swam 9 kilometers across the Red Sea, and she was the first Arab woman to ever do it. In March 2000, one announcement wiped out an entire company. MicroStrategy admitted it overstated revenue, and its stock dropped 62% in one day. A tiny animal thought extinct recently reappeared in Vietnam. The silverbacked chevrolet, the world's smallest hoofed mammal and nicknamed the Vietnam mouse deer, was found after 30 years.
This horrifying photo cannot be explained. In 2016, a boy and his family went over to a friend's house to swim in their new pool. As the kid was swimming, his mother took a photo of him in the water. The image appears to be nothing more than just a boy having fun. But when you zoom out and take a closer look, things get pretty scary. Right beneath the boy's arm appears to be a face half submerged into the pool looking at the camera. And perhaps the creepiest part is the eyes. Everyone who was there that day insists that nobody else was in the water when the photo was taken. And as for the boy and his family, well, they've never gone back to that pool. So what do you guys think was in the water? Like and follow for more.
This is one of the craziest urban legends I've ever heard, and it ended up being true. So almost 100 years ago, there was an aquarium in Australia that had a giant tiger shark on display. And the legend goes that one day, in front of groups of families, the shark threw up a human arm. And not only is that true, but it opened a murder investigation. Also, this week's episode is all about Australian true urban legends, so make sure you listen. So after the shark threw up the human arm, the police had to figure out whose it was and why it was in the shark's belly. Well, the first thing the police noticed was the arm was cut cleanly, not jagged like it was from a shark bite, meaning that the arm was intentionally cut. So now it's clear that this was a murder, but whose arm is it? Well, one thing they noticed is that the arm has 2 boxers in a fighting stance tattooed on it. So they end up writing about that in the paper, and one guy who was reading it goes, "Hey, that sounds like my brother's tattoo." His brother was a man named Jim Smith, and he was involved in the seedy underbelly of Sydney society. Jimmy ran insurance fraud scams in Sydney, and he was just involved with a lot of bad people. And the last person he was seen with was one of Sydney's most notorious criminals. The story has a lot of twists, including how was he involved with the last guy he was seen with. And there's a lot of fun Australian urban legends, like the story of the Button Man, so make sure you check out this week's episode.
This has to be one of the creepiest mugshots I've ever seen, and the story behind it is pretty disturbing. This is the man in the mugshot, Christopher Queen. At the time of his arrest, he was 48 years old and living in Pennsylvania. So on election day in 2018, Christopher entered a polling center in Pennsylvania planning on casting a vote. But when he arrived to vote, he was told that he couldn't because he wasn't registered. Poll workers who were working that day even stated that they heard Christopher mention that he was getting paid $100 to come vote, which obviously was not true. But when Christopher arrived, like I said before, he wasn't registered to vote in Washington County, the county he was in. When the workers told him that he couldn't vote, they noticed that Christopher began to shake uncontrollably and became filled with some sort of a rage. He then made the verbal threat that he was going to come back and shoot up the place, and after that, he was quickly put into handcuffs. I don't know the full story behind why he chose to exhibit this expression in his mugshot, but they caught him before he could enact any sort of violence, and yeah, he was arrested. It's worth noting as well that in other news reports that surfaced after this threat was made, Christopher is seen smiling in the same type of manner. Luckily, though, authorities were able to arrest Christopher and put him in custody that day before he could cause any violence.
He tried to dissolve his pregnant wife in acid. Arnima Hayat was originally from Bangladesh but ended up relocating to Australia, and she had dreams of becoming a surgeon. At 19 years old, she met a fellow medical student, Miraj Safar. The two fell in love and ended up getting married in a private Islamic wedding without any friends or family present. Her family didn't see her again once she got married, and the couple moved into a home in North Parramatta in Australia. Within weeks of them being married, Arnima was already pregnant with their first child. Arnima describes life with Miraj anything but happy. He was very controlling and abusive. He would punch, kick, and slap her, and she would desperately tell her friends that she wanted to get out of this marriage. However, her leaving this relationship was going to be very difficult because she was afraid that he would take her life if she wanted to get a divorce. Arnima told Miraj through text message that she was going to report him to the police for what he has done to her and that she didn't want her son to be just like him. And he replied saying that all of their sons were going to be just like him. On January 22nd of 2022, Miraj saw text messages on Arnima's phone between her and her friend telling her how much she hated her husband. This caused him to fly into a rage and he took her life. He then started to Google, can hydrochloric acid burn through skin and how many years do you get for murder? Miraj then was seen on CCTV footage driving his truck to a store buying 5 20-liter tubs of acid. When he got home, he dumped the acid into the bathtub and then grabbed Arnima's lifeless body and dumped her in the tub. Later that night, Miraj called his mom to let her know that him and Arnima got into an argument and she was no longer breathing. Police arrived to the home and Miraj was arrested. Arnima was unable to be identified due to the decomposition of the acid, but later on they were able to identify her with DNA samples. In 2024, Miraj pled guilty and was sentenced to 21 years and 6 months in prison, but will be eligible for parole in 2038.
When you finish this video, you're going to Google 2 words. In 2014, 2 Dutch college students were staying in Panama when they decided to take their host family's dog out for a walk. The dog returned, but the girls didn't. After 10 weeks without any leads, a local woman turned in a blue backpack that contained the girls' cell phones and their camera. Using their call log, they were able to determine that the girls would attempt to reach emergency services 77 times, all unsuccessful, starting just hours into their trip. It was also determined that 5 days after those 77 calls, somebody tried unsuccessfully several times to unlock the girls' phones. But the most distressing thing is what was found on the camera. The first set was taken on the day they left and they were totally normal. The second set was taken in the middle of the night over a week after they had left, and it showed all their belongings neatly laid out on a rock, and it showed one of the girls who appeared to be hurt. They found their remains spread out around the area where the backpack was found, and some of their bones appeared to have been bleached. There is still no official cause of death or explanation as to what happened.
Creepy last words people said right before dying. Registered nurse Emily Thompson said that she had a female patient who was dying of cancer. The patient had grown increasingly anxious in her last days. She often complained of a strange sulfuric smell in her room. It's getting stronger, she said one evening. Emily, who was accustomed to the odd perceptions of the dying, tried to reassure her, but the patient's haunted eyes told another story. That night, she gripped Emily's hand with surprising strength, her breath coming in shallow gasps. "He's here," she whispered. "Who's here?" Emily asked. "The devil's here. He's waiting for me." Her voice cracked. Her face twisted in terror as she turned her gaze to the dark corner of the room. "I did terrible things," she said. "Things no one knows." The nurse followed her stare, but there was nothing there. The patient's lips parted as if to scream, but only silence came. Her body convulsed, then fell still. Emily said that the smell of sulfur lingered in that room long after the patient died.
Crazy things happening in the world right now. A man's iPhone fell into a temple donation box and was declared deity property. A homeowner ended up in jail after calling police on a squatter in her house. A stroke left a woman with an Italian accent. A man sued after buying a fake moon rock for $50,000. A chef served 3D printed steak at a fine dining restaurant. A woman was arrested for using a fake police badge to get free donuts. A man tried to roast marshmallows over volcanic lava. A town banned dancing after 10 p.m. to keep noise levels down. A woman sued a theme park after a seagull dropped a fish on her head. An airport installed sleeping pods that charge by the minute. A man built a house entirely out of recycled plastic bottles. A farmer painted his cows with zebra stripes to ward off flies. A zoo painted dogs to look like pandas after real ones failed to arrive. There's a vending machine that is dispersing random mystery items instead of snacks. A man installed a fake speed bump to slow down traffic in front of his house. A pizza shop offered a discount for customers with bad tattoos. A mall hosted goat yoga classes in its parking lot. Libraries are now starting to loan out power tools along with books, just so people can't. A recent new study from Financial Times states that human intelligence is sharply declining. On average, as a society, we all spend 4 hours and 37 minutes a day on our phone, which is also 70 entire days a year, which is also over 15 years of our life.
This is why you should never stay in a haunted hotel. A group of friends decided to browse the internet for the most haunted hotels in America. They kept browsing and eventually found one called the Marshall House. They began reading the reviews and everybody kept saying that room 414 was by far the most haunted. So the friends decided we have to rent this hotel. Once they booked it, they bought a bunch of equipment like a spirit box, a Ouija board, and a UV light to help communicate with the spirits. A couple weeks passed and it's time to leave. The drive was around 5 hours, but they eventually made it there. They walk to the receptionist and they say, "Hey, I'm here to check in." The receptionist looks at him and says, "I know you're staying in room 414. Good luck." This threw the kids off guard, but they started walking up the stairs and entering the room. If you want to know why I know this story so well, it's because this story happened to me. We put the Ouija board on the bed and started loading up the spirit box. And well, this happened. Leave me alone. I just heard leave me alone. If you want to see the full video of me staying in the most haunted hotel, click the link in my bio and watch the video.
Creepy facts that will disturb you. A Nightmare on Elm Street is based on a real story. Director Wes Craven read from the LA Times that a boy was having disturbing nightmares and refused to sleep for days. The same night he succumbed to exhaustion, he died in his sleep. Aztec priests believed that the tears of children could stop droughts. Aztec followers believed in the power of human sacrifice, and many of their rituals included sacrificing women and children to serve their sun god. When they experienced drought, Aztec priests sacrificed children because they believed their tears could call on the rain. Alchemists used to use brain matter as an ingredient for the elixir of eternal life. In the 1600s, John French, who was an English alchemist, used brain matter in all of his concoctions. Another horrifying fact about his elixirs was that he stored it in horse manure for months and then drank it after.
Do not fall asleep in the crow bed, because if you try to, you might meet the Crow Mauler. The Crow Mauler is a brutal boss from Fear and Hunger. This thing used to be a man named Randm who served as a captain in the Randm army, until one day he decided to head to a mission in the dungeons of Fear and Hunger. The dungeon was built atop catacombs that were filled with madness. This madness spread to the dungeons and it caused all sorts of horrors and depravity. Randm wanted to cleanse the area of all of this, but eventually he lost himself to it. The more insane he became, the more he dreamed of crows, until he eventually became a being that attempts to kill anything it sees. The Crow Mauler. This boss is ridiculously difficult, but if you actually manage to beat him, he drops a key. And this key is used to get one of the strongest weapons in the game, the miasma. There's also a two-headed Crow Mauler, and he's even creepier in my opinion.
Let's talk about the Arcadia tapes. In 2001, in Arcadia County, Ohio, a teen named Calvin Dim went missing on his way home from school. This was really unusual at the time because Calvin was actually a pretty well-accomplished athlete and he was very tall for his age, so whoever did overtake him and abduct him was either a larger person or a group of people. So for like weeks, this investigation goes cold until a VHS tape is mysteriously found at the doorstep of his parents' house. The VHS was compiled of various different clips of unknown people in different masks who were just staring into the camera. But there is one clip in this video that had the words Cal, short for Calvin, edited into the VHS. This was pretty definitive evidence for the police that whoever made this video either knew where Calvin was or they had him in their possession. Police would end up finding this frame, which showed a person in a black tarp, presumably with their wrists and ankles tied. Investigators believe this could be Calvin, and what's even eerier is they think this was shot in the woods behind his house.
She was caught having a child with a corpse. 26-year-old Jennifer Burrows worked at a morgue as an assistant pathologist. She gave birth to a baby boy, and in order to find out who the father was of that baby, she needed to come clean. A DNA test was done and it revealed that the father was a 57-year-old man who died in a car accident in March of 2017. This man's body was at the morgue where Jennifer was supposed to autopsy him, but she did other things to him. And with this, she admitted that she took 60 other bodies of males between the ages of 17 to 71. Jennifer did this for about 2 years and never got caught until she had her baby. She was arrested and faced a total of 158 charges. They believe that Jennifer was suffering from psychosis and lost any notion of reality. This happened in the state of Missouri, and there are currently no laws outlining the practice of necrophilia. Therefore, it is technically legal in this state, so who knows how many other morgue workers have done something similar like this. Let me know what you guys think about this case.
Imagine watching a serial killer documentary and realizing that your home was used as a torture chamber. That was reality for Katrina McGaw. Believed that Maury Travis tortured and killed around 12 to 20 women in the basement of his home. Some of these murders were recorded. Katrina knows that the dining room table she ate at every night was in the crime scene photos. Maury unalived himself in jail in 2002 and was never prosecuted. Maury's mother is the one that rented the home to Katrina without letting her know its horrifying history. Like the makeshift cells that used to be in the basement of her home. The videos of him torturing victims. Maury's mother initially refused to let Katrina out of the lease, until the St. Louis Housing Authority intervened and helped her get out.
Have you guys heard about that man that came home from work and caught his wife and her son in the middle of the act? I mean, this is horrible. Okay, for context, this is 27-year-old Austin Dennis Lee Casey and his mother, biological 45-year-old Crystal Lynn Fallis. According to the affidavit, on July 4th, police responded to a 911 call at a home in Arkansas, and when they got there, Austin's little brother told police that he, his mother, and his brother were all very drunk. He said that he fell asleep, and when he woke up, he saw his brother on top of his mother doing it. The brother was in shock and tried to make them stop, but Austin was much bigger than him and was able to fight him off. Until Fallis's husband came home from work, went to take a shower, and when he got out, he saw them still going at it. He immediately made them stop, told them they have issues and need to get out of his house, and called 911. His son Austin fled the scene before they got there, but they were able to arrest him and his mother, and they're both being held on a $35,000 bond, and their next court hearing is in May. And apparently they arrested Austin's younger brother too, because after Austin fled, he started beating on his mom because of what she did. Her husband then got a divorce and proceeded to call every single person he knew and tell them the type of person that she is. Prayers to that poor husband and brother that had to witness this. Let me know what you guys think, and as always, I'll keep you guys updated.
Somebody messed up bad. Because how does a picture of Chris Watts and his family get on a blanket that you would gift a dad for Father's Day? For those who aren't aware, Chris Watts unalived his entire family. Everyone in this picture with him, including the unborn baby that his wife was carrying, was unalived by him. Why? Well, because he had a mistress who many people believe was much more involved than originally let on. I've done a couple videos in the past on just the insanity of this case, but this one, wow. This might just take the cake. The blanket reads a message that says, "Daddy, love you to the moon and back." My guess is that this is a customizable blanket where you can change out pictures of your own father, but holy hell, what terrible advertising to put a literal family annihilator on a blanket that you're supposed to give to a father. I can't provide a link to this because it's obviously been taken down, but I just want to know your guys' thoughts in the comments, please.
Breaking news, April 2025, there's a brand new Idaho 4 case documentary summary that has just come out. With Bryan Kohberger's trial coming up in the next few months, I highly recommend watching this. This aired on the CW Thursday, April 10th. It has investigators, journalists, and first responders providing details and information about what happened the days leading up and the days after Bryan Kohberger took the life of the 4 students. I have provided the information on how and where to watch in the comments. Bryan Kohberger was back in court this week for a hearing. It was revealed in court this week by Ann Taylor, who represents Bryan Kohberger, that they believe there is an alternate suspect and multiple weapons. They stated Bryan Kohberger could not have done this by himself. He is not physically capable. Bryan Kohberger's team also spoke of how they are not happy with the, quote, dollhouse-style model home that they will be using to present to the jury. However, the judge did rule this week that they are not allowed to use the word psychopath or sociopath when referring to Bryan Kohberger, as he has not had an evaluation to make that determination. Prosecutors are asking for not all of Bryan Kohberger's family members to be allowed present to all of the testimony during the trial. This is because they intend to call at least one of his family members. However, Bryan Kohberger's team says that they love him, support him, and will not be helping prosecutors in any way. As you may recall, Bryan Kohberger's sister said at the dinner table during the holidays that she believed Bryan was guilty. In addition to that, other family members and her also went through his vehicle during that time. There was a lot more information revealed at this week's hearing that you can find at the playlist below. I'll keep you guys updated. What do you think? Drop in the comments.
This is one of the most disgusting and disturbing videos I've ever seen in my life. Not only would TikTok not allow me to show you this video, but the audio itself would make moms and dads, brothers and sisters of little girls stay awake at night. So I'd rather not even play the audio itself. This video was taken last week on the 4th of April in the city of Gaziantep in Turkey. The video shows a Syrian refugee father named Yusuf torturing his 2-year-old daughter. He picked her up by the hair off the floor. While she was held by her hair, she was being thrown around, slammed on the floor, punched in the face multiple times. And Yusuf, the father, had all of this recorded. And it wasn't by accident. It was to blackmail the girl's mother over a divorce and custody battle. 2 days later, the family posted the video online on X/Twitter, begging for help. And then the authorities arrested him. The 2-year-old girl was found in a critical condition and unconscious when the authorities arrived. And because of a brain injury, she unfortunately died 2 days ago. This was her before she died. What kind of father would do this to his own child? If I name one of the most dangerous psychopathic killers, the Iceman, Richard Kuklinski, a paid hitman that killed more than 200 people, even him, he would not do this to a 2-year-old little girl. 1 day later, word of what he did spread inside the prison, and the inmates and other prisoners were waiting to see him. They saw the video. They saw what he did. When he arrived, he was beaten so bad by the inmates, because some of them were fathers, until he was pronounced dead. He was beaten up so bad. Now I want to ask you, was that justice? Was that enough? Or does a crime this horrific deserve something more? Rest in peace, little. The world failed you.
Story time: how my husband had me committed for 3 years, started a brand new life, took away my kids, all because he fell in love with our 25-year-old nanny.
When I tell you my jaw was on the floor after listening to this story, you guys are not ready. So this woman named Crystal was married to her husband for 12 years and they were together for 15 years. She grew up in the foster system and never met any of her family, whereas her husband grew up very wealthy and was from a good family. They eventually had 3 children together. And as her kids got a bit older, she decided to start working again, which her husband wasn't too happy about. Because of this, they hired a nanny to help out at home while they both worked. They ended up hiring a 23-year-old nanny, and it wasn't long until Crystal began noticing that her husband was flirting with the nanny. At first, Crystal brushed it off, but after some time, she began feeling sick, like consistently sick, to the point she thought she had some sort of illness. After going to the doctor mentioned the possibility that she may be getting poisoned. Crystal laughed it off because in her mind, she couldn't think of anyone that would be poisoning her. She only lived with her husband, the nanny, and her kids. The doctor began running multiple tests on Crystal, and her husband began noticing that she was catching on to something. Mind you, at this point, Crystal's health has deteriorated so much, so her husband decided that it was a good idea to get a medical power of attorney over her, which essentially means he can legally make healthcare decisions on her behalf. It wasn't long until Crystal's husband drove her far away and admitted her in a facility and told her that she was going to stay there until she got better. Keep in mind, Crystal had no one to call. She doesn't have any family, so there was no one to help her. She spent 3 years in this facility and her husband barely came to visit. Eventually, he told her that he started a new life with the nanny. But around this time, Crystal was feeling better and she began confiding in one of the workers at the facility and told her that she believes her husband tried to take her out to be with their nanny. This worker believed everything Crystal told her and brought this up to the medical director at the facility, and Crystal lawyered up and was eventually able to get out of there. Now, you guys won't believe this, but during this time, Crystal's husband and the nanny were expecting a child and were also planning their wedding. Crystal's only goal was to get her kids back, so she snuck into her husband's home when he wasn't there and took the kids. But then he called the police. Eventually, it became a custody battle, but little did he know that it was going to be more than just that. He was found guilty for everything he did to Crystal, including trying to poison her and take her life, and now he's serving a 12-year prison sentence.
On July 8, 1992, 33-year-old Darcy Staver and her husband, Army Captain Michael Staver, were on vacation at their lakeside cabin just outside of Glen Allen, Alaska. The two had come up from their home at Fort Lewis, Washington to just enjoy quality time together and enjoy the peace, quiet, and nature that Alaska had to offer. On this day, as they sat inside the cabin chatting, all of a sudden they were startled to hear the sound of one of their windows breaking out. And when they looked over, they saw a 150-pound black...
Oh man, we're back once again. You know, it's a beautiful day. If you're feeling down, just get you a bag of that. And just light up.
Sauce the boss, yo, sauce the boss, of course. Sauce.
About you, and it's no one else like you is what they're getting. Positive vibes only. Shout out to King Sauce Boss in the building. Sauce the Boss in the building.
At on. Who else, man? Sauce the Boss, man. Of course, Sauce.